I think when an actor has done some homework and put some thought into the scene before they show up, it makes all the difference in the world. Because, first of all, they've done their homework. They understand how the scene fits into the story. Now, let's say they don't. It's ultimately our job to make sure they know how it fits into the story or mold how it's going to fit in tonally with what just happened before and what's going to come after. And I always think it's a director's job to be able to tell the actor what just happened and where are we going. Because they're shooting out of order. They have a lot to remember. They're the ones, memorizing the lines and, getting emotionally ready to do any scene. If we can just sometimes give them that little, and this just happened, it just gives them a context.
You also use the word mold in there, which I think is important because you do it in tiny, tiny little bits, or I do. I call it the nudge, nudge, nudge version of creating a scene. You give them the big notes first, and then they get little or little or little or little or more specific, more subtle. And so it's great when an actor goes along on that ride with you. And I don't mean to make them feel manipulated at all. In fact, there's a little bit of dissemination on my part because sometimes I act like it's a brand new idea that I just got because of watching them, while it may have been something that was in my homework that I wanted to achieve. So sometimes I'm an actor too. But the idea is nudge, 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 and get more specific and more specific and more specific. And as Mary Lou said, the idea being to have that scene fit in exactly where it needs to be, tonally, informationally, and every other way. I'm the only one that has that in my head. The actor doesn't. They are only focusing on what am I doing today. So there's a little bit of, even if the actor, if you're directing regulars on a series who know their characters so well, the director is going to have more specific information about this scene and this script day than the actor will probably have.
And it's our job to know the whole picture and know how each cog fits into that wheel.
Mm-hmm. That's yours.
That's mine. And actually, that came from my first acting teacher, Manuel Duque, who used to say, you open that suitcase, you put in thousands of things for that characters, and you might not wear them, but you might. But they're packed and they're ready. And what it does is it gives the character the freedom, gives the actor the freedom to think in character, knowing that everything in that suitcase is there to be drawn on in that moment or not to be drawn on in that moment.
So great.
I always meet them before showing up on set.
If they're series regulars.
If they're series regulars. That may mean I go to their trailer and introduce myself. It may mean that I figure out some other way of meeting them. If we're lucky, a show could have a table read, and then you, of course, meet everybody at the table read. But it's so much better to have a little bit, even the tiniest bit of a personal relationship before you begin. And if none of those things work, I always go to the makeup trailer in the morning.
That's what I was going to say. I always drop by makeup on the...
Yeah.
You get a feel for the day before anyone walks on set.
That's true. That's true. And it's just a way of being cordial and a way of being friendly and of assessing where people might be emotionally. And by the way, always make friends with the makeup artists and the hairdressers, because
they're the shrinks.
They're the ones saying, "Oh, it's going to be a great day," or they're the ones saying, "Oh, that director is going to just get after you today," or whatever. I don't think anybody actually does that in terms of trying to undermine things, but they are the ones listening. They are the ones giving support. So if they're supporting me, all the better. I had this scene on NCIS New Orleans where I wanted one character to be foreground and one character to come from the background. One of the things that's important to me is not have characters enter from the side of frame. I find it intrusive and a bump. So for me, they always come on, if this is the lens, they come toward the lens or go away from the lens, but they don't come from the sides of the lens. So it was a morning thing. So the coffee is on the left and then one character's there on the left. And I wanted the other character to come from the refrigerator, which was in the background. What was great was it was an episode that had a little storyline about St. Patrick's Day. So the character had on a bowling shirt that was a St. Patrick's bowling shirt. So because of that, I just said, would you come from the refrigerator? He found an apple in the refrigerator and used it as a bowling ball to come forward to talk to the other character. It's such a great example, tiny, 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 but a great example of here's what I need on a visual level. Here's what the actor gave to it that made it a character moment. Isn't that brilliant?
It is.
Isn't it?
It is. I love it.